Hi Cougars. Today I'm going to start a series of videos of a book called All the Lovely Bad Ones, a ghost story by Mary Downing Hahn. If you like ghost stories, keep an eye out for further chapters. The dedication to all the little children, the happy ones and sad ones, the sober and silent ones, the boisterous and glad ones, the good ones, yes, the good ones too, and to all the lovely bad ones. James Whitcomb Riley. Dedication to little orphan Annie. Grandmother met us at Burlington Airport, a big smile on her face and her arms open for a hug. With a squeal of delight, my sister rushed toward her, but I held back. Public displays of affection were okay for girls, I guess, but not for guys. After all, I'd be 13 soon. Way too old for that kind of silly stuff. After giving Corey a big hug, Grandmother turned to me. Just look at you, Travis. You've shot up since Christmas. How tall are you? And I shrugged. About 5, 6, maybe 7. Not all that tall. There's guys in my class who are already 6 feet. I'm almost as tall as Travis, Corey put in, never to be left out. And I'm a whole year younger. While Corey chatted about the plane ride from New York, Grandmother led us to the baggage claim. We grabbed our suitcases and headed for the parking lot. The late afternoon air was cool and the sky was blue, a change from the heat and humidity we'd left in the city. Welcome to Vermont, Grandma said. Grandmother opened the door to the shiny red pickup truck. Toss your luggage in the back and climb aboard. Corey jumped in beside Grandmother, and I squeezed in by the door. So, do you think you'll be able to stand being away from your parents for a whole summer? Grandmother asked. My sister and I looked at each other and grinned. We'll miss them a little, Corey said, but we're used to summers away from home. Grandmother smiled. I'm glad you chose the inn instead of camp. Corey and I didn't look at each other for fear we'd laugh out loud and give ourselves away. We hadn't actually have a choice. Camp Willow Tree had made it very clear that neither Corey nor I was welcome to return. It seemed we failed to get into the true spirit of camp. We started food fights, played hooky from evening campfire, made up rude words to camp songs, overturned a canoe on purpose, and let the air out of the counselor's bike tires the day we were supposed to ride 20 miles up a mountain in the pouring rain. Was it our fault the camp staff had no sense of humor? The truth of it was, Corey and I tended to get into trouble wherever we went. Bad ones. That's what we were. Well, not really bad. We preferred to think of ourselves as pranksters. But, like the camp staff, adults, including Mom and Dad, didn't find our antics as funny as we did. Our parents had made us promise to behave ourselves at the end. One valid report from Grandmother, and we'd spend the rest of our vacation taking pre-algebra and summer school, a fate even worse than camp craft projects involving popsicle sticks and feathers. Just before the turnoff of Middlebury, we left Route 7 and took a winding road that rolled over hills, past farms and fields, red barns and sturdy farmhouses. Herds of black and white cows raised their heads to watch us go by. Beyond them, the mountains rose greenish-blue against the sky. Here we are, Grandmother pointed to a neatly painted sign. The Inn at Fox Hill, next right. Under the words was a picture of a smiling fox. A vacancy sign hung below. Grandmother swung into a long, straight driveway, shaded by tall trees. At its end was a 3-story pink brick building. The late afternoon sun touched everything with gold. The lawn, flower beds, and wooden rocking chairs on the front porch. Behind the inn, clouds cast their shadows on green mountains. Grandmother parked the truck, and Corey and I jumped out. I grabbed for my suitcase, but Grandmother said, "Leave your luggage for now. Henry can bring it in later." Martha's promised to have a pitcher of ice-cold lemonade, freshly squeezed, and a plate full of chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven. We followed Grandmother down a stone path, bordered with dense white flowers, to a brick patio shaded by a huge wisteria climbing up over a trellis. Nearby, a fountain splashed into a pool, and I glimpsed flashes of red fish swimming in its depths. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and bees hummed. Birds called back and forth in the trees. As we settled ourselves around a table, a woman strode toward us carrying a tray. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly into a knot, and her mouth seemed to have settled into a permanent frown. Without so much as a smile, she set a tray down and stepped back. "Thank you, Martha. It looks lovely." Gesturing to Corey and me, Grandmother introduced us to the woman. "Pleased to meet you." Still no smile. Just a quick dip of her head. "Mrs. Brewster is our cook," Grandmother told us. "People come to the inn year after year just to eat her famous blueberry pie." Another dip of her head, and Miss Brewster left us to enjoy the lemonade and cookies. "Martha's a little standoffish," Grandmother admitted, "but she and her husband more or less came with the inn, and she's truly magnificent in the kitchen." Corey jabbed my ankle with her toe of her shoe and whispered, "She looks a little grumpy to me." Grandmother leaned across the table to brush a strand of hair out of Corey's eyes. "You'll change your mind when you eat her first meal here." Corey helped herself to a cookie. While she chewed, she looked around. "Is that a swimming pool?" Grandmother nodded. "You can use it any time you like, as long as someone's with you. I don't have a lifeguard." She pointed past the pool to a wide, grassy lawn dotted with old-fashioned, Adirondack chairs, turned to face the mountains. "If you like tennis, the court's over there. I have bicycles for the guests. The state park just down the road has a great network for biking and hiking trails." Grandmother ate a cookie. "If it rains," she went on, "there's a library, computer, TV, DVD player, and at least a dozen old-fashioned board games. Hopefully you'll find plenty to do." Corey and I leaned back in our chairs and drank our lemonade, just as fresh and as cold as Grandmother had promised. It looked as if it was going to be a good summer. No schedules, no organized activities, nobody blowing whistles at us, no boring crafts. For once, we were free to do what we wanted to do, including nothing. Nothing at all. Corey studied the inn. "Do you have many guests?" "There are 6 rooms," Grandmother said. 4 on the second floor and 2 on the third. We can house 12 guests, but tonight we only have 2. A couple of young men. Corey looked around. "Where are they?" "They've gone out bicycling, but they'll be back soon for dinner." "You must usually have more people than that," Corey said. Grandmother sighed. "That's what I thought when I bought the place. But the inn's kind of remote. Tourists like to be closer to Burlington and Middlebury, Stowe or Woodstock." She shifted in her chair as if she were about to get up, but then she changed her mind. "Actually, the inn's location is only part of the problem," she added slowly. Corey and I sat up straighter, as if we both sensed something exciting. For a moment, Grandmother stared at the inn, her gaze drifting from window to the window to window, as if she were admiring the flowers. "I wouldn't bother telling you," she said at last, "but you're sure to hear the guests talking about it. Fox Hill is mentioned in Haunted Inns of Vermont." Corey and I leaned closer, our eyes wide. A little shiver raced up and down my spine. A whole summer in a haunted inn? What could be more exciting than that? "Ooh," Corey murmured. "I've always wanted to see a ghost." "Don't be stupid," I told her. "You can't even watch a horror movie without having nightmares." "Huh," Corey said. "Just last week I watched one of the Scream movies, and I didn't even close my eyes or cover my ears once." "Don't worry," Grandmother patted Corey's hand. "No one has seen a ghost since the Cornells sold the inn to me." "Where do you think they went?" Corey asked. "To North Carolina, I think," Grandmother said. "They wanted to open an inn on the beach." "Not the Cornells," I said. "The ghosts. Where did they go?" Grandmother shrugged. "In my opinion, they were never here in the first place." "You don't believe in ghosts?" Corey looked surprised. "Of course not," Grandmother laughed. "But sometimes I find myself wishing they'd come back. Business might have improved." "What do you mean?" I asked. "You'd be surprised how many people come here because of the stupid book. Then they leave in a huff because they didn't see a ghost. Some even want their money back." "Do you have the book?" I asked. "Of course." Grandmother got up and led us into the inn, through the kitchen and down a hall to a large room in front of the house. "The library," she said. Tall windows let in long bars of afternoon light. Several pairs of soft leather armchairs flanked the windows. A matching sofa stood near the door. In front of it was a low table covered with magazines. Books crammed the shelves and built into the walls. Grandmother picked up a thick, well-read paperback book and handed it to me. "Page 103, she said. I sat down on the sofa and Corey perched beside me. I opened the book to page 103. The inn at Fox Hill was built in the late 1700s. Originally a private home, it has changed hands many times. Although I checked old records, the inn's history is sketchy at best. Apparently it served several purposes, among them a boarding house, a tuberculosis sanitarium, a private school. In 1940 the place was abandoned. For 15 years it stood vacant. Weather, neglect, and vandals took their toll. Smothered in ivy and surrounded by weeds, the mansion was soon reduced to a shell of its former self. To passer-bys, it was the very image of a haunted house. In 1955, Mr. and Miss Stephen Cornell, young vacationers from Boston, saw the building and recognized its potential. They spent more than 10 years restoring the house and grounds. In 1967, the inn at Fox Hill opened for business. Soon the Cornells began receiving complaints from guests. A woman in a long white dress roamed the grounds at night, moaning so loudly that she woke them up. Others were kept awake by noisy children playing in the halls. Many reported footsteps on the stairs, banging doors, barking dogs, sobs, and laughter. Lights and radios came on in the middle of the night. Water gushed from faucets. Toilets flushed continually. The power went off and on for no reason, and came back on for no reason as well. Rather amusingly, one woman was especially indignant about an impudent child who called her fatso, but who ran away before she could get a good look at him. More seriously, several guests complained of theft. Watches, rings, jewelry, and the like disappeared from drawers and bedside tables. Mr. and Mrs. Cornell were as mystified as their guest. They investigated the plumbing and the wiring, They kept the doors locked at night. They even hired a night watchman. Nothing helped. The incidents continued. Soon, psychics descended on Fox Hill, followed by ghost hunters with special cameras and recorders. The experts agreed. Ghosts roamed the halls of the inn. As we all know, some people are sensitive to the presence of ghosts. Others are not. If you want to test yourself, spend a night or two at the inn at Fox Hill. I did, and I was not disappointed. When I woke up, the cheap ring I'd left deliberately on the bedside table was gone. And remember, even if you don't see a ghost, you'll enjoy the Cornell's hospitality, the inn's charm, the fresh Vermont air, the gorgeous scenery, and the meals prepared by the cook in residence, the excellent Miss Martha Brewster, a rare marvel. I closed the book and stared at Grandmother. "Are you sure?" I began, but she cut me off with a wave of her hand. "It's absolute nonsense." She shook her head disdainfully and returned the book to the shelf. 5:30, she said. "Time for dinner." As Corey and I followed Grandmother out of the library, we glanced at each other. Without saying a word, I knew my sister was thinking exactly what I was thinking. Rappings and tappings, footsteps, doors opening and shutting. We could do that, and more. Bringing ghosts back to Fox Hill would be like playing haunted house all summer long.